Okay, welcome back to Demon Slayer. Yes, I know it's the first time in a year since I've actually done anything with this series. Oh yes. Now, this is going to be my 5th episode. Yep, episode 5. The last time I did anything with this series was back in October of last year. Yep, October of last year was the last time officially I did anything with this particular series. Yep. Though that was merely discussing the manga. This one discussing the Mugen Train film. Yes, the Mugen Train film. Now, if you're curious though exactly like what this adapts, well, it adapts pretty much the Mugen Train arc. Yep, it does. Let's see if I can find... I think I put it here. Here we go. Since the fact they kind of adapted the first couple chapters already, mostly put it goes straight to chapter 66. Yep. In the manga, as far as the Demon Train, but the movie is called simply the Mugen Train arc. Yep, it is. Yeah, roughly about 14 chapters adapted the movie, which is great. The movie picks up almost exactly like just before the very end of the first season of the show. Yes, mostly put for this one. You have it where you have Sanosuke, Tanjiro, and Inosuke, where they basically make it to a train and then they walk through it. Of course, Nezuko is inside the box. She's in box almost the whole movie. Which, in case you're curious, though, is changed in the manga? No, this actually is the same. And then they try to find Rizuku. He's the fire pillar. Well, that's referred to in the manga, pillar. In the anime, English dub, he's referred to as a Hashima. Which is basically a very high-ranked demon slayer. Probably the one with the, let's just say, the one with basically who gets a high amount of respect from the master. Yeah, he does briefly just appear part of this. Now, the opening shot, like I almost kind of forgot, basically, this is how the anime was done. Where you first see it, you're like, wait, are we in live action? No, this is how Us with the studio who makes this. It makes it look so real. Like, wow. That's one thing I can at least give high praise for this movie, is the animation is so freaking good. I hope when they announce a war for this movie, like, I think maybe Crunchyroll should probably should get this movie at least now a nod for best animation. It looks so freaking good. Yes, so freaking good. Yeah, the movie. Well, before that, we see the Master. Yes, the head of the Demon Corps, who once again, basically, like in the series, he is voiced by Matt Mercer. Yep, reprising his role from the series, like. All the actors who were basically voicing characters from the series do reprise their role for the movie. Yep. Everybody. I'll get to more in just a minute. I'll get more later on when I talk about the other people in the movie. Now, when they get on the train, of course they walk through, and they find the fire Hashima yelling, "Tasty! Tasty!" He's a very loud person. Which he was kind of not like this in the anime. Like in the regular series, he wasn't as loud and very like, yes! Yeah, I get the fact he's probably supposed to be a very I wouldn't say he's flamboyant per se. He's very excited. And the way that Zenosuke basically, Tanjiro points out though, he has a strong sense of justice. Yep. They chat for a bit. They discussed basically a movie he did actually was actually 2 arcs for this one back in the Spider Mountain arc in the Nagamo Mountain, basically the Spider Mountain. Yep, where they discuss this for they discuss this for this particular what he did in that arc, and of course Riku's like, that's interesting, and of course he mentioned about the fact that his father practiced when he was in snow, like that's very brave of him to do. And he, of course, mentions he has never heard of this thing. Now, is this a change in the manga? No, because they said the same thing in the manga, too. After they finish chatting for a bit, all of a sudden, a demon attacks. Yes, a demon attacks. And this happens to happen right at the conductor. The conductor comes in basically tickets. Like, Tickets. Of course, some people look like they're sleeping. Like, why the heck is he coming when people are sleeping? That makes no fucking sense. Well, there's a reason why. It involved tickets. So, and then we see them take on two demons. They defeat them pretty. They hit the fight. They have Rezaku defeat him pretty easily. And then they realize as though that those two that battle all a dream. Yep, that's a big thing about this arc. Everybody's having a dream. We see various people's dreams. We see Inosuke where he treats Zenosuke, Nezuko, and Tanjiro as his subordinates. And the demon train is and the Mugen train is the best way to describe it. It's like an actual creature. It's basically a train on legs. I thought it was kind of weird. Zenosuke is basically having a fantasy about Nezuko just running to a flower field with him, and of course she eventually can't swim, so she carries him. Okay, and as of course Totoro, this actually is fantasy of his is family being alive, despite the fact they died at the start of the series. Yeah, this is all fantasy, so don't worry about that. And of course starts saying, it's like, why don't you get worry about oh, you think the magic goes behind in the box? Like, nope, not there. Or just go basically in broad daylight. And he's like, why am I saying that? Yep. And he goes to water to get some because his mom wants to draw a bath, and then he sees himself, so tells himself to wake up. And of course, and we see on the outside, everybody is we see these four guys. Yeah, apparently the tickets basically knocked everybody, all 200 people in this train, all knock them all out, except for Nezuko. She's the only one immune to it because she's a demon. So it turns out that the blood from the actual demon who's in charge of this thing is actually the lower one. Yes, he's actually the last of the lower moons. Because if you watch the anime, in the final arc of the season, Mugen himself actually killed all of them except for this one. Yeah, he killed all but this one. Oh yeah, and then he said he was upper one, and then of course in the movie it's like, oh yeah, he's a lower one, but he's still one of the moons. And this thing is dreams. And apparently he can detach his hand for some reason. Acts like he's thing from Addams Family. We see the one person printing tickets actually was a collaborator of his, so he gets sort of to his dream with his late wife and late wife and daughter, and he's happy for that. And apparently, in the case of this guy, he's been doing this for some time because people keep disappearing from this train, and of course, the demon slayers are here to investigate what's the cause of this, presumably demons. And yes. And of course, Inosuke thinks that this train is a demon, smells it, he basically uses smell. Well, he thinks, and yeah, he actually is right by the very end. And of course, it's Nezuko who helps him wake up by basically burning at the actual flames. And of course, Tojo wakes himself up by committing suicide. And eventually, the other two do wake up. Of course, Nezuko basically takes her blood simply by giving him a headbutt because apparently he's got a very hard head. That's a recurring gag in the series, that he's got a hard head, and that for him it doesn't hurt him much at all, but for other people, yeah, it hurts. They get headbutted by this guy. It's like this head is made of iron. Yep, and of course Nezuko wakes up the other two. He of course finds with the demon, and he finds them pretty quickly too. Just because sense, oh yeah, this demon smells hideous. And he climbs the subtrain, and there is the demon. Just sitting on top of the first car. And when he sees them, it's like he dodges all of his attacks. And then he sees Darren, he's like, "You're the guy Master once killed. I gotta kill you right away." Yep. So the man slashes at him. And it turns out this technically is not his actual body. Nope. Even at the top of his head, it's like, and Tundra was like, that was too easy. Which he was right. It was too easy. Because he's still around. It's like, they can say, oh yeah, this him? Nope. His whole body's the freaking train. Wow, that's something. And looking up the air too, do wake up. Those guys still asleep. They take out bits, pieces thing. Rescue wakes up too, though he kind of basically has got a subconscious thing where he protects him from being attacked by somebody in his sleep. Then when they show people inside their world, two of them actually do show what their subconscious looks like. In the case of Regiro, it's actually a hellhole where basically it's like a flat, it's a very like granite surface with fire everywhere. But in the case of Tojo, it's a nice, clear surface. It kind of reminds me of the actual Water Hashima's Dead Calm. That's what this reminds me of. And I gotta say, the animation makes it look so freaking good. Yes. And of course, revealed that the guy who's in his dream just finds like, wow, this place is so beautiful. And he finds anything but doesn't destroy it. But lucky enough that, well, he gets persuaded. And of course, Tojo knocks out the other three, no problem. And it turns out the guy actually invading his dream, this of course before he attacks the lower moon. Turns out he's got tuberculosis, which, from what I've heard, is an actual real disease. That is not really effective very much anymore. I think they pretty much cured that, like, roughly about 70 years ago. It's a long time ago. It's not a disease found much nowadays. No, it's very rare you find anybody actually having it. Has any of my family ever had it? Not that I've heard of, no. Of course, he's left alone perfectly fine. The other three are knocked unconscious. And then, of course, well, Inosuke, of course, he wakes up, busts through the roof of the train, and then, of course, Tojo reveals that the train is actually a demon, and Inosuke's like, I was right! Yep, and then, of course, he goes down and protects some of the passengers in this train. Look up the other two, protect the train, no problem. And, of course, well, then we actually have it where, there we go, where they do finally get to the car, like, apparently, like, you have Tojo finding the inside, and of course he's informed by Regiko. Basically, he'll protect back 5 cars, no problem. And of course they get and find out the actual body is in the engine near where the coal is. Of course, Inosuke slices it up. The engineer is like, "What the heck are you doing?" And then he sees, "Oh, that's what's going on. The train is infected with this weird stuff." I gotta admit, the CGI of this movie is actually not terrible. Unlike some CGI I have seen for some anime, this actually is really good. Yep, and of course they find where the core is, like basically where the neck is, and it's underneath the main metal board, the metal plate of the train car. They use slice it. Of course, they try to slice it, but it gets blocked. And of course, well, then Totoro gives, well, so Inosuke basically a plan to basically deal with this, and he's like, "That's a good idea." Yep. And eventually, they do succeed in doing. Of course, he cuts to the flesh. Totoro cuts to the actual bone itself, effectively killing Lower Moon 1. And of course, train does capsize. Of course, it crashes. But here's the thing: all the passengers all survive, no problem. And of course, well, before this, the engineer, apparently who was working for the Lower Moon, he gets stabbed, but he gets saved, no problem. And of course, Totoro basically said the leftmost movie basically lie on the ground. Of course, thanks to help from Renoku, he's able to basically seal up his wound, stop the hero bleeding. And then one of the Upper Moon show up. The Upper Moon 3 shows up, and he starts a brawl with Regiro, and it's a beautiful fight sequence. Like, wow, it's so freaking good. They slice back and forth frequently, and of course, it looked like at one point he's running out of breath, but don't worry. Sword breathing is basically his whole thing. Eventually, Regiro basically gets his internal organs damaged, his ribs get broken, his eye is damaged. Nothing mentioned about his arm, surprisingly. Yes, that's why McNeil's been slicing at it. Eventually, of course, Demon does get sliced almost at one point. It looks like almost his head's going to come off. But lucky enough, Totoro, who was told first to stop, and eventually he steps in, and of course, Demon does get away. But then, of course, Regiro does eventually die after basically saying that he's done a good job, and he's very proud of him. And one more, basically, about the technique discussed with my father, who was the previous Fire Hashima. It's overall a really good speech, and typical standard tropes basically see where before a person dies, they have to give a full speech, and this actually works. Get some plot development for something that comes in the aftermath of this particular arc. And then he dies. Well, lucky enough that in the case of Inosuke, he actually, well, Nezuko managed to go inside her box, and of course we have Inosuke basically carrying the thing around, and Totoro is like, "Why are you carrying that box?" Like, of course he doesn't question it, he doesn't say anything about it. And then we see the crow who eventually, one of the Demon Slayer crows, he of course witnesses this, and everybody starts crying, including the crow itself. And then the crow basically forwards information to all the Rashimas. We see the reaction from all of them: the insect one, the love one, and the water Hashima, the one who was the first one that Tojo first met. We see him actually two words the whole movie. So you bring back Johnny Ambash, the guy who voiced this character, and you bring back for 2 lines. Oh, don't worry, we'll discuss basically more about the character soon. And of course, well, even though it's a bit somber, and of course they say that he should go to his house, and well, it seems as though that over the course of this movie, despite the fact this is technically the first time they worked together on the mission, they did really well. They say, even though the Hiroshima did die, it was really well done. It was a really good fight, and it's an overall really good story. Oh, by the way, I give the ranking of this movie a 10 out of 10. It's a great movie to watch. If you love the anime, you would love this movie. It is so freaking good. And I do recommend checking out the dub, because that's why I watched it. Now, interesting thing. Now, prior to me seeing this movie, I had heard, because the movie was such a big hit in Japan, the studio announced, yeah, we're getting season 2. Hooray! Excuse me, how long the season going to be? Do not know. Because it's been 2 years about 2 years since the season ended, and don't know when the season is going to air or how long it's going to be. If what will be the first arc to probably cover? Well, they'll probably first do with the Athena Demon Train, the very first episode, and then they'll go straight to the Red Light District arc. My guess is they might go as far as the Pillar Training arc. It's possible they might go through that. Yes, it's possible. Yes, I do think so. I think in the case of the final arc of the series, that would probably be covered in I would probably give it its own season, given how long this arc is. Yeah, the last arc is chapter 137. Doesn't wrap up to 135, just to fast forward. Even though it kind of wraps up 103, but basically its conclusion is chapter 104. Even though you read the manga, we had to have that flash forward. It was so confusing. Yeah. But I can't wait for season 2, whenever it does come out. Yep. So yeah, that's the episode of you. Stay tuned for my review for the hidden dungeon only I can enter. Okay, next video. Bye.